Pop Culture Pastor.
Cody, can we do the pod now? Can we do the pod? Listen, I need you to be with me on this because we were once chums. That was weird.
That was. I loved it.
We were once chums. I think she meant something different than I meant.
At first I thought that, but then I'm like, maybe she just meant that they really were pals at work as child laborers.
Yeah. I mean, they were clearly teenagers when they knew each other. So, but by the time they kiss, which we'll get to, there's definitely, some history there.
Potentially.
Yeah. That could have been their first kiss. I don't know for sure. She could have been all wrapped up in that Wintertide Fellowship, as one does.
As one does.
Well, hello. Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor Watch-Alongs. We're here to talk about Severance Season 2, Episode 8. What was the name of this one? Do we know the name of the episode? We don't. Everyone goes to their phones. Thanks for the help, guys.
I just remember
You're welcome.
No.
the description was discoveries are made.
It's called Sweet Vitriol.
Yes,
Sweet Vitriol.
it is.
Yeah. And so we're here, and it's a different kind of episode. We're going to talk about it. But first, Cody, what the Lumen?
Yes, what the Lumon indeed.
What's your what the Lumen moment of this episode?
So it actually connects with the title.
All right.
So sweet vitriol oil was ether back in the day.
Oh.
And the whole town's just huffing ether. They're just huffing it left and right. And they're
it's the 1800s.
Yes, and they're just passing it around at the restaurant. And I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to give that to cops.
Time continues to be a weird thing in this show.
Yeah.
Like,
Very much so.
this appears to be a fishing village from the 1800s, as far as my estimation can go.
It honestly looked like a combination of New Asgard and when Bruce Wayne finds Aquaman in Zack Snyder's universe.
Well, it's something, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, we're going to get to all that. My name is Dave. Cody's here, obviously. And we're also joined by our friend Dan Carroll, our geek of the round table, Severance geek of the round table.
Yes.
Until he's on for something else. Then.
He's been on for something else before.
What episode were you on?
I think I was discussing aliens.
Oh, we had the aliens, our favorite aliens episode. What was that? Aliens of pop culture?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't
remember what it
know.
was. Someone who's listened to every episode can tell us. I forget some of these sometimes.
I have blocked out all the episodes.
We have recorded over 300 episodes. Did you know that? In total.
And no one gifted me a cake?
No, there was no cake. We don't do things for individual recognition here, Cody. We're like, just like Lumon, it's all for the glory of Kier.
It is.
I'll bring you a melon head carved as you next time.
Melonhead. All right, we are one episode removed from a deep dive into Gemma / Miss Casey. And this episode brings a look into the backstory of Harmony Cobell through present day. Like, I like that we weren't doing flashbacks, that all of this exposition is given to us through the natural kind of arc of what she's doing. And the chatter, we'll start this one off a little different. We don't usually talk about like kind of the conversation around the show, but the conversation around the show on this episode has been a little mixed. Some people dig the character development episodes, but some people are just here for the episodes that move plot along. And I just was curious, like, where are you guys on that? Dan, why don't you go first?
I really like the kind of off the kilter or just different type of episodes. It kind of gives you an insight more into specific characters, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I really like this one because for half the season I've been like, where is Patricia Arquette?
Her name's Harmony.
Patricia Arquette, where are you?
Kissing Kate.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I am aware that these days in these kind of shows where people are really invested in the story. Stranger Things did an episode like this kind of famously in season 2, I believe, where it was all this kind of side story with 11 finding other gifted individuals, and it really had nothing to do with the ongoing story. And a lot of people complained about that. So it's kind of a thing about the way we watch things now, but I kind of dig it.
I also think this is going to set up a lot more revelation as we get to the season ending episode.
Well, and clearly there was revelation in this episode. Like,
yes,
this show, as it has mastered so much, may have mastered the way you do. You fill in some exposition and you dive deeper into a character that's not the main character, and how you continue to move the story along with it, because the story was moved along. That would be my argument.
Right.
Is we find out things this episode.
We do.
So let's just get right into that. My favorite meme this week was the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme. And the caption said, "Severance viewers every time a cold harbor is shown."
Yep.
Yeah. So the opening of the show, you're like overhead first, and then you see the water, and it's icy, and there's land, and it's clear. Harbor! It's a harbor! And yeah, I felt like that.
It's
definitely.
cold too.
It seems pretty cold. This episode, in fact, starts with this shot of a cold harbor, although I suppose it could qualify as a bay. But whatever it is, this is apparently the childhood home of one Harmony Cobell. Salt's Neck.
Clever, witty name.
Is it?
Maybe.
Guys, where in the world are they? Is this Greenland?
I was thinking Iceland because Walter Mitty, there's a point where they're in like this Icelandic village, and when they're flying away in a helicopter, it looks very similar to this village.
Walter Mitty,
and
famously starring
Stiller.
Mr. Ben Stiller. Yeah.
So that would be an interesting connection.
I just assumed they were in Canada. That's how I imagine.
I mean, it's pretty far north if it is. This place looks pretty desolate and cold. It does look like New Asgard in the MCU movies, except, not like a place not as nice. It's like you wouldn't want to go there.
They shot it on the dreariest day possible.
Yep.
Well, and first of all, the cinematography of this opening section as she's driving in, and for many parts of the episode, the cinematography was beast mode. Just incredible. This is the most gorgeous, hellish icescape ever. Like, how do they make something look this desolate of a place look this enticing?
Or how did they make this enticing place look so desolate?
Whichever way you want to put it. Ben Stiller was the director of this episode, and I just thought all of it was fantastic. And maybe an episode, I don't think these are the kind of episodes you direct when you're thinking, ooh, I'll get a lot of glory for this one. For this like backstory kind of episode where, the big plot moments don't happen.
Right.
But even then, it was hard not to watch this episode, and it was hard to watch this episode and not think, this is glorious. Like, I didn't know Ben Stiller had it in him, but this is really good.
How dare you slander Zoolander?
How am I slandering him?
You didn't think he had it in him.
Well, you know what I mean. I mean, he's a comedic actor. That's what we know him as. That's not being mean.
He is a multifaceted individual.
Clearly. Yeah. All of this place looks like an abandoned fishing village. We get Harmony brushing her teeth outside, which, by the way, I think it's funny. She just parks in the middle of the road several times, which, of course, because there's nobody there.
Just old people.
Huffing on ether.
Yep.
Yeah. So as she brushes her teeth, we see it's not abandoned. What appears to be a homeless person dropping something into a bag and burying her face in it. And then either choking, coughing, or vomiting, or maybe a little bit of all three.
I'm like, this isn't good mental or physical health strategies, people.
Yeah. As she's brushing her teeth, she looks back at the homeless lady who's now slumped and looking catatonic, yet calm. And it becomes pretty clear, yeah, this place is on the drugs.
All the drugs.
And we're going to get filled in on that pretty quickly, we cut to the gloomiest cafe ever. It's not exactly Luke's in Stars Hollow.
It reminded me of From's Cafe, but not as cheery.
There is some very From-ish moments in this episode,
Yes.
for sure. The cafe is one, and then there's one later on that we'll point out. She walks into this cafe where clearly she is recognized, Dan. She, they're looking at her like the devil incarnate just walked into the room.
I took it as this cafe was having their cheers moment. Norm!
Nobody's having a cheers moment in this town. Everybody is very sad. We find that out very quickly. Harmony walks in and she starts talking to the owner of the establishment, who clearly knows her. Mm-hmm. And she says, the town is older than I remember, frailer. And he says, yeah, well, with the market readjustment from a few years ago and the fluctuating interest rates, there was a retrenchment from some of the core infrastructure investments, which was maybe the most hilarious thing in the episode. Like the way he delivered that line too, it does a few things. One, it's hilarious. Two, it shows that, oh, this dude's not a simple cafe owner.
Nope.
The language he's using is very corporate. And we find out that, yeah, this dude worked with Harmony for Lumon. Harmony needs a favor. Meet me at the factory, she says. Now, this was clearly an ether factory. And as we said, everyone in this town is huffing ether like it's the 1800s. And this Lumon, what did you think? What were you thinking, guys, when they're moving from place to place in the town? We're seeing these like really old style Lumon signs. Mm-hmm. Like, again, it's clear Lumon's been around for a while. And were you guys thinking about this at all in the episode, or just, hey, old Lumon sign?
Yeah, it's definitely clear that it is something that has been part of this, I don't know, this country, this whatever. We still don't know the full extent of Lumon's reach.
Hellscape.
Yeah. But it's obviously been around for a very long time.
For me, I definitely felt like Cody was right.
What was Cody right about?
Last week, I brought up that Lumon seems to kind of be like a mining corporation where like everything is owned by the town, and that everything has Lumon's handprint on it, and you see what happens when Lumon moves away. Like, there really isn't a town left.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, they're like a giant leech, aren't they?
Yes.
Except for when they come in, they're not just a parasite. They take over. They control everything. And then, like you said, when they leave, all of the good things they may produce go with them. Which is interesting because we get that in a lot of ways this episode. We're going to find out that Harmony has produced something very worthwhile.
Potentially.
And the glory from that production has not come her way. But we'll get to that later. Harmony needs a favor. She says to our friend at the cafe, meet me at the factory. So she needs a ride to Sissy's.
Aunt Sissy's.
Aunt Sissy's, which, yeah, it took me a while to figure out who she was. Was she a sister? But no, she's an aunt. Oh, and again, this actor that played the cafe owner, Hampton, apparently.
Yes.
The delivery of the next line, so he's like, oh, no thanks. She still lives by the 9, he says. Is this our first mention of the 9?
At least this season.
Yeah, that I'm aware of.
So this is very Game of Thrones-ish. There was a religion and faith in that show that was monotheistic. And then there was one that was polytheistic, and the polytheistic one was the one a lot of the characters went by. And so here you have a polytheistic, very polytheistic, what sounds like religion. And I'm afraid to ask, but I'm betting we're probably talking about Egan's. Are we not?
Maybe. So when he said that, it made me think of Skyrim. In Skyrim, there was the 9 divines, and Skyrim uses a lot of old world mythology, and it borrows from a lot of different things. And so I'm like, this is fitting with all the different Greek mythology that the show has definitely seemingly borrowed from, and I was here for it.
Yeah, that's interesting too. You do wonder if there'll be some further connection to Greek mythology, which they have laid on pretty thick. He says, she still lives by the 9, Sissy, who we're speaking of, which apparently makes her a pariah there, because most people in the town, this is a town that Lumon clearly used and moved on from, leaving some very sad and angry people. She, of course, as we referenced earlier, says, we were once chums. Old colleagues lift each other up, as she's trying to convince him to help her out. And he says, colleagues? Child labor.
Yeah.
Which was interesting, because we actually made a joke about that with Miss Huang earlier in the season. And the characters on the show had qualms like, isn't this child labor? Like, why is Miss Huang here? Is she severed? That's not right. So like, even they noticed it earlier. So it was nice to see this kind of payoff of like, oh yeah, there are people out there who have a problem with Lumon's usage of children. Not only that, but Miss Huang's going to have another connection as we move on. But as we continue the conversation with Harmony and her friend in Hampton, she says Kier and Imogene met at the ether mill. Wasn't that like a John Cougar Mellencamp song? Sounds very Americana. So they head up to Sissy's, and they get there, and our friend Hampton, who is not missing any possibilities for something witty to say, says, tell her to drop dead for me. Meanwhile, Sissy opens the door. You are not welcome here. We clearly find out that this is Harmony's childhood home. They argue about mom, although to Sissy, that's sister, apparently. And there's clearly been some question about how mom died.
Yes. You ripped the tube out of her mouth.
Yeah. Well, Harmony, seems to be under the impression that mom very much wanted to live, and that Sissy was probably complicit in helping mom
not live.
Go see Kier.
Yeah.
Sooner than later.
But we don't get it right now, but clearly Sissy's not technically agreeing with that version of events. But she says here, there was gratitude in her eyes. If only she had believed in the 9. So we get that phrase again, because she would have found solace in something or other.
Yes.
Harmony in all this is looking for the key to her mother's room. She's looking for something beyond that, but she thinks it's going to be in her mother's room.
Especially once she finds out all her childhood stuff got sold.
Yeah,
or moved.
Well, that's clearly what she's looking for. There's something in her stuff that she's looking for. She thinks she's going to find it in her mom's room after she has, found nothing in her old room. And she finds the key to mom's room, which she proudly announces. I found it!
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious. And Sissy says, all you'll find in there is pain. Mother's room is creepy, you guys.
She found a good nap.
She did. She cries on mom's hospital bed. She takes a nap. She's finding some comfort in it, even though I'm like, I wouldn't lay on that bed.
My wife was grossed out.
Yeah, I'm just
because she put in like the tube in her mouth.
Yeah, the tube. Yep. She put it in the tube.
I'm like, well, the germs would have died years ago, theoretically, depending on how long ago Mommy Dearest died. But
there's no way they cleaned that, Cody.
I know they did.
Your bodily fluids, anyways.
Little unnecessary detail that they could have left out. Yes.
So yeah, she takes a nice little nap on her mother's old hospital bed. Then her old chum comes in after nightfall, and they have a nice little talk, and they huff some ether, which he so proudly is like, "You want to get high?" And she hasn't done that since she was what? Did she say 8?
8.
Oh, this town has been messed up.
Which there's probably some deeper themes with parents and addiction and the cycle of it, but I'm not wanting to get too far into that. But when he said that, I was like, do you watch South Park? Are you Tally?
Right. There was that obvious kind of synergy there. I still can't get away from like, yeah, okay, so she huffed ether when she was 8. This town looks like it's a blast from the past. And again, I'm just like, I feel like there's timey-wimey stuff going on. Harmony Cobell appears that she's, in her 60s?
Yeah, I'd say that.
She appears to be in her 60s, which would place her, like, we have every indication that it is normal time. They do have Apple, they have iPhones.
They do.
Even though they're all driving cars from, like, the late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, at the earliest, or at the latest.
A lot of 80s.
But even then, we're assuming Cobell is from, the 60s. Mm-hmm. This town, no. And huffing ether? I don't think that was a thing in the 60s, you guys.
The 1860s it was.
I feel like there's still, some very timey-wimey things going on.
So this goes with my Kearspiracy, though.
Kearspiracy!
So maybe Lumon is developing with their Severance chip, because ether was like an anesthetic originally. Maybe they are trying to develop technology where during painful events, you can shut off the part of you that's quote unquote alive and normal. And so like if you're giving birth, you don't have to experience it. Boom. You are strictly just going to see a happy, healthy baby handed to you, and you don't have to go through any of the pain of childbirth.
Interesting.
Or you don't have to go through the pain of dental procedures.
Oh, yes. That
way
to tie that into, flying on an airplane. Way to tie that into the last episode.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
So, as she's all hopped up on the ether, she gets this look in her eye, and she realizes something. She wouldn't have thrown it away. So she goes out to the storm cellar, which this is the other Frumish part of the episode. I'm like, oh man, I'm getting vibes. She's going to go into that underground storm cellar thing.
And the guy doesn't go in with her.
No.
Chum stays out.
Chum, he's not up for that. And she finds what she's looking for. It's her scrapbook, baby. Which again, the yearbook, that looks newer than anything in the town. Like the yearbook looks like it's from the 90s. And also says "Go Fighting Kids," which I thought was very interesting. Clearly their mascot was a goat.
Right.
Yes.
But also "Go Fighting Kids" seems like it might have a double meaning. Just saying.
Maybe.
Saying.
I do like that we're getting more goat imagery. Bring back the goat farmer people.
What was with the little heads on the on her sister's what was that, like a jewelry box? I don't even know what that was, where she's looking for the key, and I'm assuming those heads were like the Tempers.
It kind of reminded me of those costumed individuals at the waffle party.
But one of them was a goat. One of them was a goat's head, and I'm like, what Temper is that?
The devil.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I wouldn't doubt it at this point. She finds what she's looking for. Oh, we need to talk about something else. In the yearbook, guess who was valedictorian and Wintertide Fellow? One Harmony Cobell.
Oh, Patricia Arquette.
She was Miss Huang before Miss Huang. We get this imagery that she was an achiever.
Well, that's why she could not come back home.
Yeah. And she finds this notebook. And we don't know what's in the notebook right away. She goes back in. She finds what she's looking for before she can leave because she needs to go tell Sissy something. So she goes in the house. She says, "Don't tell them I was here." To which Sissy says, "I would never bear falsity to a steward of the Egan's." And then Harmony's getting a little upset. She's like, "Lumon destroyed this town. You owe them no loyalty." And she says, "There was no town before the factory. What about your own employ? Everything you have you owe back to the Egans as fealty." Fealty? Then the truth comes out. Harmony doesn't think she owes them anything. In fact, Harmony feels like she's been cheated. Because guess who came up with the entire Severance program? Harmony Cobell. Her notebook full of notes no teenager would ever write.
So it was not Bert.
No, it was not Bert. That was a conspiracy of ours from a few episodes back. Harmony Cobell came up with it all. Her words, the overtime contingency, the Glasgow block, all of it. And she has thus far not said anything. And she gives for the reasoning that Lumon is very much about like, hey, this is Kier's knowledge that he has given to you. It is for everybody. Mm-hmm. And yet, James Egan says he invented it.
You lying, no good scoundrel.
Sissy tries to burn the notebook.
Which I called as soon as she went into the house. I'm like, don't go in the house with that.
Bad Sissy. Meanwhile, she stops her from burning it. And, well, first of all, let's stick right there for a second because I want to talk about the motivation that Harmony Cobell has. So she's an achiever. Do you know what drives most achievers? The affirmation and approval from the ones they want it from, the love from. What has Lumon denied her? Approval and affirmation. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, Harmony is going to be on the other side of this. And by the end of the episode, seems pretty clear.
Yes.
Yep.
I also will say that that's the motivation for her going inside with the notebook, is that she's wanting approval from her aunt, who clearly was a believer, where her mother wasn't. And that might have been a big turning point for her on like her relationship with her mom and also her relationship with her aunt. And so when her aunt's like, forget this, fire.
Well, at first she's shocked too. Sissy's shocked.
Yes.
Why did you never say anything about this? That's when she gives kind of the exposition of, well, Kier's knowledge is for everybody. So she was a good soldier, was Harmony Cobell. She did what she was supposed to do, and look what she got for it. She got cast aside. Just like Salt's Neck. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a pattern. We're seeing a pattern.
And if you go with my mining town analogy, whenever the mine runs low or dry of what they're mining, usually coal, they move on.
Yeah.
And there's nothing left for the workers or the residents of that town.
We're getting a very clear, and this, I don't think this is full conspiracy because I think it's kind of obvious, but we're getting a very clear through line for this story about corporate industriousness is bad.
Just exploitation of resources. Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting the idea that like maybe none of this is about hell or satanic energy, although it's not an accident they're putting that imagery in the show because they're trying to point out that, hey, it's corporate entities that are evil.
Where is Joan Baez when you need her?
Who's Joan Baez?
The singer.
What'd she sing?
She was a folk singer.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't name a specific song.
Why'd you just think of her?
Because she spoke out against the man and the businesses.
Okay. That's what I'm asking. I don't know who Joan Baez is. I didn't grow up in backwoods, Kansas.
She was in backwoods, Kansas. Like, backwoods Kansas wasn't pro Joan Baez.
I mean, gosh, did you not listen to Journey? Or
it
Van
was
Halen?
the 60s, my guy.
You weren't alive in the 60s?
That's what you think.
Or have you been working for Lumon? Okay, so we get this. That's the big reveal of the episode, that Harmony Cobell is coming with all this. This is all interrupted by our friend outside who says, "Someone is coming! Someone is coming!"
That's a good chum.
Hampton gives her the truck with a "see you around." She says Hampton, which is interesting. Just Hampton, and then drives off. And then he says, "Come tame these tempers."
Oh, he's familiar.
He's about to die, isn't he?
Yep.
Yep.
That's why he's not like, drop my truck off at this place, please.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and if we had any questions about where Harmony was going to end up by the end of the episode, as she's driving off, she finally answers Devin Scout's phone call.
She's ignored it 2 other times.
Yes. Devin's been calling the entire episode. She's ignored it. We haven't mentioned it up to this point, but she's been calling the entire episodes. She picks up the phone. Devin fills her in that Mark has been reintegrating, and she says, "Put him on the phone." She says, "Mark?" He says, "Yes. Tell me everything."
Mock.
And then, "Tell me everything, Mark." And then the credits roll. Dan, she's fully on their side now, right?
That's what I was gathering. Yeah, it seems like she's ready to vengeance is about to be hers.
Yeah. By the way, she totally scoffs at Ragabi. She knows immediately once that Mark has been reintegrating. She's like, "Ragabi? How has she not killed him yet?" So whatever we assume Ragabi's a pretty smart person. Whatever Harmony's working with is in next level genius intellect.
I'm going to assume that she must have worked in the Severance chip development, Ragabi, but wasn't the primary knowledge source behind it.
Yeah, she was a grunt.
Yes.
She was a grunt scientist or something like that. But we've got quite the setup. Was this the penultimate episode? Are there 10 episodes?
There's 10.
Okay.
This is episode 8.
So we got 2 more episodes.
Yes.
All right. Good. Where do we think it goes from here? Where are we going, Dan?
That's a good question. I don't know. This last one kind of threw me for a loop again. I enjoy the tangent episodes, but yeah, now it's just like getting back to the main group. I'm like, where are they going to take it now?
Yeah.
And where does Irv and Bert fit into this?
Man, I don't know. I don't know that Bert fits in, because all our Bert theories take a hit this episode.
They do, except there's a chance that he still was a part of the development of it. He just wasn't the creator of it. And he feels the guilt and the shame from that. But now that we have someone that's definitely referencing the religious aspect of what Lumon's about, I'm more intrigued by Bert's husband talking about the Lutheran Church saying severed individuals could get to heaven.
Yeah.
Because there clearly would be like the known cult stuff that doesn't fit in anywhere close to the Lutheran stuff. And you would assume the severed individuals would be getting told some of that if Lumon has connections to it.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked a couple episodes back. It was a topic of conversation. The difference in housing from Burton Fields, who seemed like they lived in a pretty nice place. We had Gemma and Mark living in a pretty nice place in the past in that episode. And then most of the severed people were living in cruddy apartments. Could it be that if there is timey-wimey stuff going on, it would make sense if Bert had been with the company for a long time and there was time stuff going on, that they would be invested in things? Like that Lumon would help them. Like, think about Congress people right now. Like, think about people in Congress and the Senate in the United States. Just by virtue of the information they are aware of, their investments make money better than your average investment, because they know in companies they have insider information. Whether you think that's illegal or not, I don't know. I'm not trying to get into that part of it, but I imagine there's something that may be going on with people who have been at Lumon for a long time. Like, say Bert's from the early 1900s. If there is some weird timey thing that happens when you get severed. So, say Harmony Cobell. Say Harmony Cobell is really in her 60s, but she's also really from the 1800s. Like, do you follow where I'm going here? That when you get severed, there's also something where your body is going into some sort of stasis. I mean, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Sure.
But that over time, you're not using that money hardly, right? Because you spend half of your day not yourself. So you don't have to take care of your food. Like, Lumon takes care of your needs in that area. I don't know. I'm just thinking they probably have a great investment 401k program thing going on there at Lumon.
Sign me up.
All right. Dan, who's the winner of the episode?
Oh, man.
Do you not like going first? Maybe I shouldn't have you go first.
No, that's all right.
Okay. I do that so the guest, we don't steal your
I'm
winner.
Stealing.
Oh,
You're stealing? Okay.
Cody says he's going to steal it.
Well, I'm going to have to go with Devin on this one for the persistence in phone call.
Devin finally gets Harmony.
Good job. Keep calling.
To answer the phone
Just keep calling.
at the end.
Harmony is the winner because she has been gone forever. I literally thought that maybe Lumon got her on the highway. And nope, she made it.
There's a part of this episode where it feels like, oh, she's at her rock bottom, but she can always go home to Salt Neck and be somebody.
Yep.
Because you can't get more rock bottom than Salt's Neck.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. No. The winner of the episode for me is whoever's going to get bequeathed the Drop Pot Cafe or whatever that was. Now that, because Hampton's probably, not going to be among the living. Is it the lady with the breathing machine or that has emphysema or whatever she's got from huffing the ether?
I was hoping it was going to be the law enforcement officer.
It was Dot, right? That was her name, Dot?
Yeah.
I think Dot is the winner of the episode because she's about to get herself a cafe in the lovely seaside hamlet of Salt Neck. The setup of that town was interesting too, because you had the land masses on either side, and then it met in the middle on these little thin things, and then there was a little small mass in the middle of the harbor. Mm-hmm. That was Salt's Neck. That was just interesting. Dan, who's the loser of the episode?
Loser of the episode, I would say, is probably Sissy for me.
Yeah. What's Sissy do now?
Right.
She's just waiting for the 9?
She tells the Egan's what Harmony has said, and then the Egan's have a contingency plan for Harmony.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to have a contingency plan for Sissy because now Sissy knows some things she shouldn't.
That's true.
Well, she's ready to meet her makers.
Sissy meet her makers. Is that a fancy code word for she's working the goat wing? She's about to get severed, my friend. Because, listen, Lumon doesn't waste anything. I don't think they're going to kill her. They're going to sever her, put her to work.
Well, someone needs to.
There's some weird people. Like Sissy had all the weirdness of Goat Lady from the Goat Wing.
A little bit.
Brienne of Tarth.
Yep.
For me, the loser of the episode is the individuals that still reside at Salt's Neck.
Yeah. I'm going to go with that one too. Gosh.
Clearly, Lumon has not done you any favors with your addictions and your town after they leave. So
this is the saddest place on earth. I didn't think it could get sadder than wherever we've been in the normal Lumon
can
scape.
And it will.
Oh, but this place is now we see what happens after Lumon. Oh my gosh. This was terrible. It was like Detroit.
What? Why are we slandering Detroit?
Because Detroit had a lot of issues when all the car companies left.
Oh,
they did, but poor Detroiters.
They've rebounded. I know that, but I'm saying I was drawing a real world comparison.
Well, I have seen the show Detroiters, and how dare you?
All right. No ill will towards Detroit. I was just saying Detroit almost fell apart after the car companies left.
I, again, will stick with my poor miners in West Virginia.
All right. How many Go Fighting Kids out of 10 are we giving this episode, Dan?
I'll give this one an 8.5, I'd say.
8.5 Go Fighting Kids.
I also will go 8.5.
Yeah. I'm going to go 8. Which is pretty average, I think, for a Severance episode. It's not my favorite episode, but this was not a bad episode. And I'm here for the character development. I kind of like it when we spend some time with a character we haven't seen in a while. And they tell that story in a way where we get some development anyways.
Right.
We find some things out.
It is either really good or really bad. I don't know which. That it follows such a huge episode as the previous episode, where you get all the Gemma stuff, you get everything shot like exquisitely, and then you're like, oh, we're into the coldest, loneliest place ever.
Yeah. But understand, the heart of the last 2 episodes have been the same.
Yeah,
We're following a character through their context, and we're learning through their context.
characters that I thought were dead.
Not dead. Not yet, anyways.
Not yet, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where we go next week now that Harmony is on her way back to join the revolution.
On a mission.
All right. Tell us what you thought about this episode on the social media posts for this watch along, and we'll get ready for next week.